The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse Ewing. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle, where you can access your full potential right now. Finally break free from destructive habits. That dream life, if you want it, you can have it. This is where you transform your health, mind, business, and relationships. Or do nothing and keep your life the way it is. But if you're ready for change, you're in the right place. This is where you're gonna learn how to live a habit-based lifestyle. You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewing. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle.
This last weekend, I was in San Francisco for a training, and I'd never actually been there before. But I found myself in this brand new place. We were in Chinatown, or just across the street from there. And it was a completely different place. Like, I'd never actually been to San Francisco, let alone Chinatown. I can't say I've ever really even been to a place like that. But it felt a lot like, downtown Portland, Seattle, and then a little bit like Tijuana, except obviously with the Asian culture. But I found myself the last day, Sunday morning, walking by myself down the street. It was about 8:30 a.m. And I was just kind of like in the present moment, just kind of looking around, kind of rushing along to get to the conference. I had my suitcase, my backpack, because I would be flying out as soon as the conference got over. I'd immediately have to go to the airport. But I was just sort of walking along, kind of minding my own business. And as I came down this street, the street name was actually Kearney, I noticed a man who was walking across the street with his wife. Now, he wasn't actually like just walking. This was an elderly man, and this man had some type of issue with his foot. It looks similar to something like drop foot or maybe some nerve damage, because he was kind of like limping along. He looked like he was about 70 years old, but I noticed he couldn't walk normal. I noticed he was moving very slow, and when I mean slow, it was like there was traffic backed up for like 1 or 2 blocks just so he could get across the street. And he also had a cane, but he had his wife on one side of him, and she was helping him, and she looked like she was about the same age, but she was really like trying to help, and I could tell she was struggling, and the man was also struggling too. So I stopped and I approached them, and as I approached them and walked into the middle of the street, I noticed that the arm that the man's wife was on, that side, it was deformed, and it looked like maybe there was a prior accident, or maybe it was even a birth defect. But I noticed, and I kind of seen this, and so I was like, man, like I really started to feel bad for this guy. And as I kept walking closer, I simply just said, hey, can I help you? And the wife and him they didn't really say much. They're also Asian. I don't know if there was a language barrier or what, but I said, hey, can I help you? And they both said in a quiet voice, like, no. They shook their head. And I said, are you sure? And, both of them said, no. And so at first I felt kind of this rejection that, here I am, I could probably pick both of them up and take them across the street and do that faster. But as they said no, I kind of, felt this pit in my stomach. Like I felt rejected. I felt hurt. And in a little bit, I felt empty and kind of helpless. And then I kind of went into this feeling of, man, they don't want my help. Like, why would they not want my help? And maybe you've felt this way. Like you wanted to actually help someone, and you thought you were doing a good deed, but someone actually said no. And at that time, maybe you felt rejected. The problem for me is not everybody, even if we offer up help to get out of the way, to get out of our own way, wants our help. And maybe you're a coach, maybe you're a parent, maybe you're a business owner. And like me, you're convinced everybody wants your help or needs your help. You see, one of the big pains that comes up with this is the feeling of being rejected. Rejected when your kids don't want you to actually solve their problems for you. The rejection of employees not actually wanting you to solve all of their problems. And then we talk about coaching clients. Many times we push our agendas on our clients, and then we get rejected back and can't figure out why. See, there's a huge pain and a huge cost that comes from not being able to solve everyone's problems. And there's been so many times in my life but where I actually believed I was the answer to someone's problems. My entire fitness career was built around this, from fitness, nutrition, even in business. Just simply wanting to help people, but not realizing it's not maybe what they wanted at the time. It was almost like this forced help. And if they didn't want to go at my pace, then I would pull them along. And there's a huge effect of this, the cascade effect of this, of carrying the weight. There's so much heaviness and so much weight when you actually have to force people to do things. What if it was possible for you and I to not get triggered or feel rejected in this space of somebody not actually wanting our help? Maybe it's even in the relationship with our kids. I can think of so many times with my son where I'm out working with him in baseball. Even right now, we're going through this a little bit, and I'm trying to work with him on his batting, but at the same time, it's getting emotional, it's getting out of hand, and then all of a sudden, he doesn't want my help. And then I thought, what if I could just stand back and smile and move on? And if you're listening to this and you're into the story, I'm going to paint the picture of actually what happened next. So I would back up and I would walk over to the sidewalk. And I just kind of stood there and watched them just to make sure they didn't need my help. But as I stood there, I began to put myself in their shoes. There was nothing wrong. They were making it across the street together. And it was probably like they'd done 1,000 times. You see, what I started to realize is maybe this is the way they made it across every street. And they were together, working together as a couple. It was actually kind of beautiful. I got to watch them figure it out on their own. But the one thing I started to realize, and I started to kind of smile, as I thought to myself, man, how many times have I actually forced myself to help people when they didn't really want it? And how I could have just gave them space as a coach to actually figure it out on their own. How I could have just gave them this energetic space to just watch them grow and make it across the street. You see, this was a huge lesson for me because this whole weekend, this thing kept reflecting back to me. That as a coach, as a trainer, as a consultant, even as a father and husband, my job is not to solve other people's problems. My job is simply to hold space. And even though someone may have a problem, I may not be the one that's there to solve their problems for them. I may not be the one that necessarily has to show them. I just need to hold space to let them figure it out. And if they get stuck, I can be there for them. If they don't want my help, then that's okay. And I can just smile and watch them grow on their own. So maybe you're listening to this and you're like, well, that's your job as a coach. Well, in some ways it is, but I think the bigger job I have as a coach, husband, father, and maybe you can relate to this too as a mom or wife, is how much different would our lives be if we just held space for other people instead of always inserting ourselves into helping them. I know my kids would be able to learn, they'd be able to trip and fall and learn how to pick themselves back up. But how much weight could I actually put down? And so as I got back to my conference, I began to write some questions down. And I began to just witness what I had actually probably spent the last 20 years doing. And that was carrying the burden of people and helping them. And if they didn't get success, I would put that weight on my back, like it was my fault that they didn't have success. So I went through these 3 questions. What weight could I let go of from other people? And if you're listening to this, you may want to tune in, whether you're a coach, wife, husband, mom, father, maybe you're just an employee somewhere. But what weight could I let go of by not feeling like I had to help everybody? And how could this help me as a coach, as a husband, father, wife, mother, man, woman going forward? How could this lesson help me going forward? And then the last question I began to ask myself is, what am I actually discovering about me in this learning? What am I discovering about me? Well, for me, this was the key thing is I got into coaching. I got into training. I got into this industry because I wanted to help people, because I seen how much it helped me. But as I've sat in this industry, I've started to realize that not everyone wants my help, but everyone wants space. And that's something I can offer up as a gift to anybody I come in contact with. So the final question is today is for you. Where in your life are you carrying the weight of wanting to help other people? Maybe it's your kids. Maybe it's your wife, your husband. Maybe it's in your business. Maybe it's with clients. But where in your life are you carrying the weight of wanting to help other people when they may want to figure it out on their own? See, this is a powerful question that you can begin to ask yourself to find the answer inside yourself. I appreciate all of you being on here today and being able to share this experience. But if you are looking to connect further with a group of like-minded people, join myself and hundreds of other like-minded people in my Habit-Based Lifestyle Secrets group. It's the link to this group is in the show notes. I'd love to have you be a part of this group. This is where I drop daily habit tips and tricks, and where you can begin living a habit-based lifestyle. Now, if you have any questions, comments, or requests, feel free to contact me, Jesse at habitbasedlifestyle.com. I would love to connect with you and see how we can work together or hold space in the future. Until next episode, have an awesome day.
The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse.